What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Dogs and Hogs. We've got Russ Tanner. We've got Rodney Nabulsi. I'm Bobby Andrews. We have got a bunch to talk about today, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, leave a bunch of comments for us. We'll be going through those. Feel free to weigh in on this conversation because, Russ, we have got a lot to talk about tonight. First and foremost, let's talk about the schedule. Let's talk about it. I don't know if it's a bright spot per se, but let's talk about the schedule release for next year. Let's look ahead to a little bit of future down the road. So
it's official. It came out today, right?
It was leaked today. Yes, it was
leaked.
Official. Yeah. Roddy will pull it up right there. Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
So starting off, Clemson. We knew that wasn't a surprise to anybody. So we knew who we were playing. It was just the dates were in question. I believe is so. We've got Brock Vandegrift transferring to Kentucky, which was made official today. So we'll face off against him the third week of the season. And then we've got a bye right before we head to Bryant-Denny to play Alabama. It's going to be a tough game there. Auburn at home, Mississippi State at Texas will be interesting. Roddy, what was isn't there an F1 race in Austin the same exact weekend?
Yeah, same weekend.
Yeah, but here's the thing: that race only draws 400,000 people, so I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah.
Good luck getting a hotel anywhere in the damn state of Texas.
Yeah.
Look, you look at that schedule right there, man. Like, I love the Clemson Open. That was fun up in Charlotte 2 years ago, whenever it was. I love the big starts to the season. You got a little breather with Tennessee Tech. Kentucky, you always feel good as if you're Georgia playing Kentucky. It's a tough game, but the Brock Vandegrift, line makes that just a lot more interesting now. You get the bye week, you're idle there, but then, man, look at that next 4 weeks. Holy moly.
Yeah,
you talking about a run, dog. You going to Tuscaloosa, you get Auburn, Mississippi State at home. Auburn, Mississippi State, it never matters what kind of year they're having. Those are not cakewalks. You don't know what you're going to see. It's going to be two very different type of offenses. What Auburn's doing now with Mississippi State with Jeff Levy down there, a lot of high octane stuff. And then you go to Austin. That's as tough of a 4-week schedule as you're going to find anywhere in the country. And this is the only schedule I've even seen. So, yeah, man, that's a let's hear the people complain next year about our strength of schedule.
Right.
When we get this murderer's row.
Talk about the bye weeks here. We've got, one right before the Bama game and one right before the Florida game. That's as usual, the Halloween, we had a, neutral site in Jacksonville game against Florida. Russ, how important are those bye weeks before those games?
They're enormous, especially it was always such a bad deal for us when we played because Florida had that bye week and we did not for so long. And you have 2 weeks that allows you to get healthier. And then, man, time in the film room, like every hour you spend in the film room makes a difference. And you got 2 weeks to prepare, 2 weeks to focus, 2 weeks to just drill that stuff over and 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 over again until you get in the game situation. You're like, oh, yeah, I see it. Look at what they're doing. I got them covered here. And Florida always had a leg up on that with us. So bye weeks are huge. The bye week before Bama's huge, just have a second week to prepare. Then by the time you get to the Florida week down there, you need a week off for your body. The grind of the season is intense. The mental grind, the emotional grind, the physical grind. You need that bye week. So I love the bye week before Florida, and I'm glad we got it for Bama because, man, you need it. Like we just talked about, that's 4 weeks in a row. Bama, Auburn, Mississippi State, going to Austin to play Texas, like that's a rough stretch, dog. So, yeah, those are our 2 well-placed buys. Whoever the schedule makers are did us a solid there.
Yeah, do you think they're –
did the same for Alabama and Florida. Alabama also has a bye week before facing Georgia.
Well,
I'm sure Florida does too.
Do you think that they're obviously adequately placed before 2 of, our bigger games of the season, obviously, but do you think that, one – pretty early in the season, it's the 4th week of the year. Do you think, other than being adequately placed ahead of big matchups, like do you like where they're at on the schedule just in general?
Yeah, because they're broken up is what you want there. It would stink if you had an off week on October 19th, then again November the 2nd. It messes your rhythm up. You don't need that much time off. So, maybe would you like to see it after the 5th or 6th game, then one after the 8th or 9th? Sure. But I think you play 3, have a week off, 4 week off, and you finish with 1, 2, 3. You got 5 after the bye, right? If I'm counting right. So I mean, that's a tough stretch down the. Golly, that's tough too. Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Then you got the 2 cupcakes at the end of UMass and Tech. Before who knows what the SEC championship games will look like next year. So yeah, man. I mean, to answer your question, yes, I like where they're placed. I feel like they're spaced out well before 2 of your bigger games on the schedule. But man, I'm telling you, them boys better strap it up tight coming in next year because that's a darn schedule right there, son.
Yeah, it really is. It's a gauntlet for sure. Like you mentioned, it's, no more people are going to be saying, oh, Georgia's got such an easy schedule. So it's going to be tough to go undefeated with a schedule like that. So yeah, anyways, really historic years. Roddy, were you saying something?
Well, so the good news is you don't have to go undefeated because all of a sudden next year you got 12 teams in the playoffs. So
yeah,
that makes it a lot easier. Also, I want to know what SOB decided to run Alabama and Auburn back to back for Georgia. I mean, it's bad enough that Georgia has to go back to Tuscaloosa.
Right.
Last time Georgia and Alabama played in the regular season, Georgia went at Tuscaloosa. Again, it's like, wait a minute, how the hell is Georgia having to go back there? And remember when Auburn complained to the SEC about having to face Georgia and Alabama at the end of their season. And they changed the schedule around, and all of a sudden Georgia had to go back-to-back years to Auburn, which was already some BS. And then they got it so that Auburn could play Georgia in the middle of the season, so they wouldn't have to face Auburn, Georgia and Alabama back-to-back to finish their season. Well, now all of a sudden, what's Georgia got in the middle of its season? Auburn and Alabama back-to-back. I'm like, man, if there's a way for Georgia to get hosed on this thing, they figured it out. So I'd like to know who in the, I appreciate the bye week where they put them, but that's some BS there. Then I don't know. I think Georgia's getting hosed.
I mean, that's a tough schedule. That's a ridiculously tough schedule. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you go Bama and Auburn back to back. Then you come down that stretch you got highlighted right there. Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee. I mean, dude, that's a hard run too. So you look at that. The good news is the 12-team playoff makes a huge difference, like you mentioned. So you feel like for Georgia with that schedule next year, you can pretty much go ahead and look at it. If they go 10-2, they'll be in the playoffs. You've got to think that'll be the case. And it's hard to look at that schedule and anticipate an undefeated season. Now, it's very possible. Kirby's got them where we want them. The team's going to be great. The recruit class is going to be excellent. We'll do well in the portal. We'll be big, fast, strong, yada, yada, yada. That's murderers right there, big dog. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And as I was saying, it's no longer the days of going undefeated, to get into the college football playoff. Obviously, you'd like to make it into that, top 4 and bye weeks and whatnot. But Georgia obviously missing out on the college football playoff rankings. Russ, we've got Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama. Obviously, Florida State at 5, and Georgia getting left out at 6 as well. What was your initial reaction? Did you expect Florida State to get left out? I mean, I was shocked. I don't know about you, but what were your thoughts?
I mean, I don't have any new takes that haven't been discussed. But the people that are watching our show right now, they know the deal. They've read the headlines. They've been on Twitter. They've read the dog vent, whatever. So I don't have any new takes that I can offer that's going to blow you away. But Florida State, I mean, they 100% got hosed because of TV money, SEC power, whatever it may be. Do I think that Alabama is one of the 4 best teams in the country? Yes, I do. Do I think that Georgia is one of the 4 best teams in the country? Yes, I do. Do I think that Georgia deserves to be in the playoff? No, I don't believe we do. Do I think Alabama deserves to be in the playoff? No, I don't believe they do either. And it's because you can't go with a Power 5 undefeated team, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and not make it to the playoff. And then you got 3 one-loss teams, process of elimination, who beat who? Florida State, Texas over Bama, Bama over us. I think Texas should be in. I do think Georgia and Bama and Vegas will tell you that will be favored over anybody else they play in there. Georgia,
which means they're the better the better teams.
Sure, that's right. But
is it best teams, or is it who went undefeated in a weak-ass conference?
I mean, I hear you, but it is what it is. I mean,
you can hear me, but I'm right.
Yeah, but you can't do the best teams with that, because if you do the best teams, Washington shouldn't be in.
Right, they shouldn't.
Well, I agree, but the way the rules are set, and with what I think what it's going to be, I think about the kids who play in those situations, who are playing for those teams. If you can only play who's on your schedule, it ain't their fault that other teams they play suck. You play who's on your schedule, and those teams took care of their business all year long, and that should mean something. They should be in. So I think Bama should be out as well. For the record, I mean, Bama's going to win the national championship now. Watch what happens, but I don't. They should
Which
be in.
means they're the best team, and they should be in.
So, and you know the committee's so full of crap because of Jordan Travis was hurt, 3 weeks ago? And they kept him in the number 4 thing. And then you look at what you're saying right there. We're now ranking as the best team. So with Jordan Travis out, Bama's better than Florida State, but Florida State's better than Georgia. Man, go get a feather and tickle yourself till you laugh or something. Like that ain't right. Like it's a made up ranking now. And that's why everybody gets outraged with it. So if you're going to put the best 4 in, Georgia and Bama should be in. If you're going to do the most deserving, Georgia and Bama should be out.
And again, the only reason I'm arguing with is that's my point. They are mandated to put the best teams in. There's nothing in their charter says most deserving. It's specifically about best. And I don't believe that Washington should be in there. And I don't believe Florida State should be in there. And it's mainly because, you went undefeated. But if Georgia went and played a bunch of weak teams, it's like, okay. And heck, Georgia went undefeated through the regular season. That should count for something. Yeah. So you can tell me that Georgia had to be undefeated through the regular season and the postseason to get in. Alabama did not need to be undefeated to get in. And FSU, although undefeated, doesn't get in. I'm like, you have a shifting set of values or shifting set of standards depending on which team. And if you're going to tell me that a Alabama team that had won 29 in a row, back-to-back national champions, and loses by 3 on a neutral site, if Nick Saban loses by 3 points, that they're going to keep him out, they're going to drop him from 1 to 6. That's bull. So my point is, if you're going best teams, Michigan plays in a tough conference. They went undefeated, even if they cheated. Hey, you get in. Georgia, you were number 1. We thought you were number 1 all year. You lost by 3 points with questionable calls and players out. Because if players out affect FSU, maybe players out affect Georgia because you're going to get them back. So then Alabama, hey, you beat the number 1 team. You deserve to get in. And then Texas, like, hey, you beat Alabama, who beat the number 1 team. So you deserve to be in. So if you're going to do the 4 best teams, that's it. And I know people don't want to see 2 SEC teams in there. And you don't want a 13-0 Washington and a 13-0 FSU. But at least you'd say, look, we're consistent. So to me, where it all falls apart is for them to say, we're putting Washington in because they went undefeated in a weak schedule. But we're not putting in FSU, who went undefeated in a weak schedule or in a weak conference. So to me, they're half pregnant. So they're trying to say, it's a shifting thing. So that's my whole point. I'm like, you can't tell me that Georgia can drop from 1 to 6, and then the 3 other teams that lost conference championships combined only dropped 4 places. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, you're right with your argument. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I mean, because I think you're exactly right. I think the committee is extremely flawed with how they've done it. I think they painted themselves in a corner with the things they said publicly about the best teams and what they're going to do, this, that, and the other. And then to pull the rug out from Florida State the weekend of the final rankings to leave them in front of Georgia 5 and move Georgia to 6. Like, it's just a bunch of crap. That's all it is. So I don't think the way in my brain of a person who loves college football, Georgia and Bama should not be in the playoff this year because you win your conference. It is what it is. You play your 12 season, you play your 12 teams, you play a conference championship. We can argue about it all we want to. That's the way it is. That's our schedule. You win those games, you're in. If you don't win those games, you shouldn't be in. Bama shouldn't be in. So
very fair. I agree. I mean, it's most deserving or best, and the most deserving was be the ones that won all their games in the conference championship.
I am frustrated with the college football playoff ranking system as well. Just the system as a whole. The committee, it is quite honestly a joke at this point. I mean, to Roddy's point, they're so inconsistent. Mike Greenberg said on ESPN earlier this week that this has turned into figure skating. College football has turned into figure skating. And he said it great because it's now judged off of a group of judges. It's no longer looking at records. It's it is, but at a committee of what makes them qualified to make the decision on who are the best 4 teams. It's all up to a couple of judges. It's all turned into figure skating. So the committee has consistently messed up. They've been consistent at consistently messing up the rankings ever since the beginning. Like you said, they've painted them into a corner with what they've been saying. And historically, the decisions that they've made, all this precedent that they set for themselves, all this bad precedent that they've set for themselves has completely just, the system is collapsing. It is horrendous. And thank God we no longer have to see it anymore with the 12-team playoff, because I would be furious because who are we going to be fighting over? A couple 3-loss teams? We're going to be fighting over a 3-loss LSU versus a 3-loss Louisville getting into the top 12 next year. It's not going to matter next year. But it was just a completely a wild way to end the 14 playoff this year. So
I agree, it's wild, but spilled milk at this point for us. I mean, it is what it is. It's a bunch of crap. But
who do you have winning that whole thing?
Look, I'm sorry.
Who do you have winning those games?
Which games?
Michigan, Alabama, Washington, Texas.
Oh man, unfortunately, I think it's gonna be Bama and Texas. I mean, I don't see how you don't put those two teams in. Michigan, to me, Michigan's got a really good defense. They look solid on offense, but year in and year out, we see it every year, and it hardly ever fails. When these Midwestern Northern teams come and play teams in the South, they don't fare well. When there's equal time to prepare, everybody's ready, everybody's watched film, you're all healthy. They're just not fast. It's the way it is. Bunch of big cornbread white boys on the lines of scrimmage with big, thick linebackers with ankles like they're the size of their thighs, and they're just too plotting. That's what Michigan does. So the chance for them to come and beat Bama and to beat Texas, who Bama's got it figured out on offense now with Jalen Milroe. Like, the dude is a different player than he's been in earlier in this season. He's a really good quarterback now who understands when to run and make it hard on you. And he's going to be the best athlete on the entire field when he plays Michigan, no matter what happens. So I got Bama there. And Texas versus Washington. Washington's defense is doo-doo. It's like one of those strainers that you get spaghetti out of the sink with, or out of the pot with, to drain it. I mean, stuff just keeps flowing through it. There's nothing they can do to stop it. Their defense is bad. And I guarantee you the Texas defensive line is going to put Michael Penix in a spot he has not been in a lot this year as far as just being pressured. Michael Penix is a good player, a really good quarterback. Heck, he's 28 years old. He's been around for 19 years. I swear he was at Indiana back in 1994 playing quarterback, it seems like. So, it's going to be Texas and Bama. And then, I don't know. It's crazy. I hope the Dogs obviously smoke FSU, beat the crap out of them. But what if FSU beats Georgia in the bowl game and they're undefeated, and then the national champion is a one-loss team and they're undefeated Power 5 champion to beat Georgia in a bowl game? Ooh,
they're going to pull
about being mad.
The UCF national champion, like UCF did a couple years ago. What was that? Was that back in like 2018 or something like that?
Yeah, it wasn't long. It wasn't that long ago. So, but
I'll salute that flag.
Yeah, Bama and Texas, and you're not, and Sarkisian's not going to beat Saban twice in a year. Not going to happen. So, that's why I think Bama's going to win it. And if you don't think Michigan is unhappy about it, the greatest clip from the college football weekend, latest rounds, was the Michigan reaction, the team reaction shot when they announced number 14. They were getting ready to see Florida State on there. They were getting ready to erupt. The backup quarterback, third string guy, we're going to take it to them. And there's a number 4, Alabama. Oh, Alabama. Oh. Then they were like,
You could hear the groans. You could hear the groans from Michigan players and stuff like that. Yeah, that was a funny clip. Yeah.
Yep.
Alabama's going to beat Michigan, and Texas is going to take it. Washington's barely won. I mean, now granted, Texas has had some issues. Like Taylor Cox says Texas beat TCU by 3, won an overtime at K-State. They're very inconsistent, but Washington has a long streak of single-digit victories.
Yep.
They've not won a ton of their games. Of course, Alabama should have lost it. This is all Auburn's fault.
It is all Auburn's fault.
If Auburn, you screwed it up for Georgia. And remember, a couple of years ago, if Tank had gone not gone out of bounds, if he'd stayed on the field, they'd have beaten Alabama then, and you wouldn't even have to face them in 2021. So, again, this is always Auburn's fault. And no matter what happens, it's Auburn's fault. We need that as a tagline. We're going to change this to Dawgs, Hawgs, and Auburn's fault.
It's got a nice ring to it.
Well, I don't know why you guys are so out on Washington. I feel like, listen,
Because
out of all the teams in the top 4, I will be not necessarily rooting for Washington, but
I'm pulling for Washington.
I was about to say it's the lesser of all the evils, and they can play some ball. Okay, I understand. They've got some, but they beat Oregon twice. Roddy and Russ, both of you guys rave about the Dan Lanning program, this, that, and the other. Oregon is great. Dan Lanning's a perfect shoe-in for whenever Kirby ends up leaving. Like, what he beat Dan Lanning twice, or Washington beat Dan Lanning twice. What's stopping you guys from having faith in a Washington team against Texas?
You want me to go
what did
first?
Georgia do to Oregon?
Yeah.
Again,
that was last year.
This is a conference. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, they got boat raced. The lines of scrimmage are not good enough out there to play with the Southern football teams. That's the bottom line. And even there, the skill position players, the depth of talent that Georgia has, Texas has, Alabama has, those teams out west just can't hold up. It's just not I'm telling you, man, it's not possible. Now, the thing I like about Washington, I don't know much about this guy, Roddy. I'd like for you to do the research on this. Their coach, Kalen DeBoer. Have y'all seen his record as a head coach? I mean, his record is unbelievable. It's like 115 or something like that. So there's something to be said about a coach that learns how to win and gets teams in position all the time. So maybe he's a better coach. Maybe we need to start paying attention to him out there. But the little bit I've seen on the field, Washington seems to be skating by. And you can skate against teams that you're better than for so often. But when you try to skate by a team that is way more talented than you are, it's like you're trying to dodge all these haymakers all night. And whenever Tyson does connect, you're done. And that's what I feel like is going to happen with Washington, unfortunately. And I'm for them, man. I want them to win it at this point. So
I'm with you there. But here's the thing. When you look at the fact that they've barely won some of their games, which, hey, I've never been big into margins of victory. Although you got to wonder if Florida State had scored 1 or 2 extra touchdowns, would they be in the playoffs? Did it come down to, hey, you just didn't score enough in this last game? But when I look at people go, well, Washington's really good, and I've been saying, I was asked in like week 3, who's the most dangerous teams that Georgia has to face. I was like, Washington and Alabama. And they're like, Alabama, they just sat their quarterback. I'm like, he's really good. That's going to be a mistake, and they're going to find out.
Yep.
It turned out to be true. My whole thing is when you're looking at the Pac-12, what's the Pac-2? I mean, that conference is blown up. That's different football. That is 7-on-7 football. That's not trenches football. And when it goes up against trenches football, Georgia lost this past game on the line of scrimmage to get Alabama. Georgia against either one of those teams is favored and will beat them on the line of scrimmage. Texas has a great line of scrimmage. That defensive front's pretty nasty. So, Michigan's got a good. They got a good offensive front. They put 13 different offensive linemen out there. It seems like when they go unbalanced, but they're just going to push through whatever Washington wants to do. And Washington has a great quarterback, but I mean, you just can't get pushed around and expect to have success.
Nope, 100% correct.
And that's a great segue into this past weekend's game, the SEC Championship. We got to talk about it, guys. I know it's played out at this point. Everyone's talked about it, but Roddy, you mentioned getting outplayed on, you said on the line of scrimmage. I mean, losing 27-24 to a really good Bama team. Ladd was banged up. I'm surprised he came back in the second half. Brock was banged up. No rah-rah. But let's talk about some of the controllables. Russ, what did you see on Saturday that what went wrong for the Dawgs?
Well, I mean, Roddy mentioned on the lines of scrimmage, and that was the biggest spot. And in the first half of the game in particular, their interior 3 linemen, I don't know their names, their 2 guards in their center, were pushing us all over the place up front. Brent Rollins, friend of the show, does work with Roddy and those guys, also the Pro Football Focus stuff. He was talking about some of the issues for Georgia this year, and it was how down the defensive line play was this year. And they just couldn't up front handle the push that Bama was getting. They were gashing us. Now, the stats at the end of the day didn't look that much different. It's not like Bama ran for 300 yards, 250 yards, but they ran it at will at times throughout the game. Milro had time in the pocket, and then whenever it was time for him to scramble, he really hurt us there. So we were never able to really pressure Milroe consistently. We got a few sacks, got on him a few times, but they were running the ball at will. They were pushing us out of the way. We're here, they're here, and they move us there, and then run right where we were. There was too many guys losing their position, losing leverage, getting pushed, literally pushed out of the way. So a lot of times we like to talk about zone schemes, gap schemes, this, that, and the other. You can go back and watch it. And there were 4 or 5 times in the first half where the Bama offensive line were moving Georgia guys 3 or 4 yards off the line of scrimmage. That's a 10-foot hole that gets left for guys running. And you can't win like that, especially when you got players as talented as Bama does with Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Bond, Jalen Milroe, et cetera. You cannot get pushed around up front, give them free reign to run where they want to, and then Milroe have chances to take shots at you and win. And you couple that along with then 2 mistakes, right? I mean, we're not throwing stones at any player for Georgia here because the man in the arena is always getting criticized, but he's the only one fighting. But the false start on the field goal, it's killer, dude, because you doink the next shot. And then the fumble down there on the little reverse we ran, that's the difference in the game. It's 1 penalty, 1 turnover, and we lost by 3 to what is one of the 2 best teams in the country, I feel like, in Bama. When you're in that environment with the lights that bright, that much pressure on it, you can't make those mistakes and expect to win. And Georgia did, and we lost.
You look at the game plan they had when they came into the first drive with a healthy Mims, and that's what they'd practiced all week.
Yep.
Mims at right tackle and Truss at left guard. And you lose a guy like Mims. I mean, this is a top 15 pick. He may be the first or second offensive lineman taken in the draft. He's just absolutely. I mean, and you're worried about their edge. You know, they got 2 good outside linebackers, 2 elite guys. And when you practice all week, you run your entire game plan with the same offensive front. Russ can attest to this. Then all of a sudden you pull a guy, he's out. And now all of a sudden, all the reps of all those plays you've run at left guard, now you're trying to remember what the right tackle does for all of them. Now you've played it before in Russ and Xavier Truss, but that changes. Mike Bobo's worried about his protection. He's worried about them getting to him. That's going to change the plays he calls. There's nothing. People are, oh well, he changed this. He got nervous, or they coached nervous, or they didn't want it enough. I hear all these stupid excuses, and I'm like,
nah.
If you take someone's best tackle out of the game, it changes the ball game, and that was it. And then to your point, Georgia's defensive front. We specifically asked Trey Scott about this last year. We said, look, you're losing Jalen Carter. You know, that's a big deal. What's the defensive front going to be like? Because, you know, the year prior, you lost Devontae Wyatt, Trayvon Walker, and Jordan Davis. And he said, I'm so – and he's legitimate. He was so excited about the depth they had, you know, talking about keeping Warren Brinson and getting Nazir Stackhouse, you know, and Terry Mingham Dawkins and all these guys who are going to, you know, be able to contribute right away. And he said, we have so much more depth than we've ever had, you know, starting next year. That depth didn't mean crap. It really didn't. I mean, you don't have a difference maker on that front. You don't have that zero technique who takes up 2 guys and keeps those linebackers clean. And that was just it. And then you hear Saban going on there going, well, you know, we went we were really worried about the run. So you look at the defense front they were in on that first drive. Georgia just killed him. Then he's like, oh, well, their guy's hurt. And he actually said, we went to 40, you know, nickel defense, and we were able to split our safeties. So all of a sudden you've got bracket coverage over Georgia's best guys. He says, we weren't worried about 19 and 84, Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey hurting us because he knew they were messed up. Plus you got safety help over the top, or the safeties come up to take away the run. The best thing that could happen for Alabama was to Mims get hurt. I guess maybe the other thing would be Carson Beck getting hurt, but I mean, it's like the second best thing is for them to lose an offensive lineman. Now, all of a sudden, he could get pressure with 4. They could stop the run with 4. You know, it's just, okay, they won. So
injury,
and the fact that you only lost by 3 is a damn testament.
It really is. It's really unbelievable. I mean, the Georgia team, so much respect for what they've done as an outsider, where I'm at now looking at them. But Xavier Mims ended up the year, said Van Pran Granger is probably the best offensive lineman, but behind him, Amaris Mims was the guy. And Truss has done a good job. He's been beyond serviceable. He'll be an NFL guy. But like you said, Mims is a top 15 pick in the draft if he comes out, works out well, and does all the things. He's that talented. And it changes what you do. It changes how you attack. So many fans, it made me so – I don't get mad at fans very much, and I don't get mad about people I look at when they write things, all right, that's stupid. But for the people that come out and try to get down on Bobo after that game, it's stupid. It is stinking stupid. I mean, he ran this offense better than we've seen in a long time. Once he figured out the rhythm, the first 3 or 4 games of the year, and by the way, we were injured like crazy then too. The offense ran as good and as smooth as it did anytime Monken was ever here. Facts. If you want to argue me, just go look at the stats. I'm right, you're wrong if you want to argue that. So you come into the situation now to where you don't have a mobile quarterback like you did with Stetson Bennett. Carson Beck was the man a lot of the year, but he's not a mobile guy. When you get why does that matter? What does that matter, Russ? You've been the guy all year long. You're right. When Mims goes down, it changes your protection. To your point, you got to leave a guy in to help, and then having your probably your 3 most explosive players on the outside, Ladd McConkey, Brock Bowers, Ra Thomas, either out or limited to say the least. You're not threatening them in one-on-one situations. Healthy, you can't guard Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey one-on-one. If Ra was in there, showed all year long, he was one of the guys that can make plays for you. So now you're taking your 3 best outside threats, and they're either out of the game or limping, and then you take your most effective offensive lineman on the edge and take him out. It's a great deal for Bama. They can now keep guys back in coverage and press you up front. And it's hard to do with that. So, and now he doesn't have that mobile quarterback with Stetson. Stetson covered up a lot of things for Monken because when things didn't go right, when somebody was injured, someone was out, like Stetson was a different dude. He can make things happen with his feet and get out of there. It's just the way it goes. You don't have that with Carson Beck. When the system is together, Carson Beck was the man. When guys are hurt and Bama's as good as they are, it's super hard, super hard. Take any other team in the country. Say, well, what about Penix? What about Nix? Take one of their starting linemen out, take their 3 best receivers out, and see how they fare. It's going to be a bad day for them as well. So, a lot of respect, man. We won 29 in a row, 2 national championships, 12 games in a row, and we lost to a Bama team by 3 in Atlanta. Sheesh. What a freaking run.
It was an incredible run. And if, somebody mentioned the officiating, if maybe a little bit better officiating, you're still in that run, or maybe if you have a couple fewer guys less injured, then all of a sudden you're still in it. And to me, I get accused of defending Mike Bobo. Me and Mike Bobo aren't friends. I don't care if he gets criticized or not. I just want the criticism to be accurate on football. Now, to me, he only took 1 shot downfield. That's a Mike Bobo problem. Call more. 3rd and short. You're running Edwards. Don't run Edwards. Run Milton. Throw on those 3rd and shorts. I know everybody says, run it on 3rd and short. There are some things that I would do differently, or in retrospect, you don't know it at the time, but I can see some of the criticisms. But to me, if you're going to criticize the defense and what they did or the offense, you need to know what the other side was doing to be able to give an accurate criticism. So to me, it's like, well, why didn't we run it more? Or why do we run up the middle? Well, there are only 4 guys on the line of scrimmage. Inside zone play against 4 guys, that's a winner. Am I wrong?
No. Has there ever been a team that was favored or expected to win that got beat that isn't very sure that the rest screwed them and that one of their coaches sucks and should be fired? That's just the way it goes in knowing college football. So, it is what it is, man. We had opportunities. At the end of the day, we made mistakes. Bama made plays.
And I think, I like this point from Josh Hammonds right here. If you told me that Milro passed for less than 200 yards, rushed for 40 yards, I'd be cashing in my Sky Miles for a ticket to Houston in January. Which I love this point because the defense did play pretty well. You mentioned not winning on the line of scrimmage very well, but we limited Milro. Like that was
that's
huge,
messed up though.
Is what?
That stat's wrong.
Which one?
Here's the thing. It says he rushed for 40 yards. He rushed for a lot more than that. What they do is they take out the sack
take into
yards.
consideration sacks.
So,
Correct.
The guy had a lot of yards.
So he did.
But that's what made him so dangerous. And you saw when there was one play that broke down, and what did Carson Beck do? He took off for a run and saved your bacon.
Yep.
You don't have that threat, as Russ was saying, with Carson Beck very often. And a lot of times when you're doing that, when you're making that read option, it's like, I'm not worried about the quarterback keeping. I'm just going to go ahead and crash in and get that backside pursuit. And we saw that a lot. The backside guy coming and making a play. It's like, because he has zero fear of the quarterback keeping it. So that's when you watch plays, that's dangerous. But again, Josh was right. If you'd seen that, you go with it. But
Right.
Do you remember they ran at will, and so did Milrow, and that 40 yards is not indicative of how dangerous he was.
The stats. I mean, yes. To your point, if you take those stats in a vacuum, yes, you're correct. But Milrow did a great job with their game plan, and while he didn't rush for 150 yards, nothing like that. The 30-yard run at the end to break the game open, and they had 3 or 4 throughout the game to pick up first downs or to extend the play. And shoot, the one time we had him and he did the underhand flip forward to Isaiah Bond out there was an unbelievable play. So, you know, we get caught up in stats. This is what I hate about the Heisman now. The Heisman is now a quarterback stat award.
Yeah.
Jalen Milrow, I don't think he should win the Heisman, by the way, but it's playing games like he did to where you talk about what does it mean to be a game manager? It means you make the plays that need to be made when it's there. You flip the ball to Isaiah Bond. You scramble one time. You hit a guy on a deep crossing route. You make plays that your team needs you to at the time. And it's not just about throwing the ball all over the field and just trying to see how many yards you can get passing and all that. So, you know, I thought Milrow did a very good job. I thought Bama's game plan was very good. I thought they took advantage of Georgia's injuries and deserved it. I mean, they beat us. That's the way it is. Do I still think Georgia's one of the 4 best teams in the country? Yes. And you can bury me on Tanner Hill knowing that I'll still believe that. So,
But to my point, we limited Milrow through the air as well. Like, what was the stat of the first quarter? Did he have a completion in the first quarter at all? His final stat line, he was 13 for 23. He threw for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns.
yeah.
So, yes, he did hurt us with his legs and made some major plays, but it wasn't like he was slinging the ball all over the lot. And, I mean, there were some huge plays that he ended up making. He showed up in big-time situations. But for the most part in this game, I mean, we gave them a short field on the Beck and Bell fumble. Like, yeah, they only got 3 points out of that because we got a great stop on defense. But like, I think we did decent with Milrow. Of course, he hurt us with his legs, but I agree with what Josh was saying about, you know,
I think Bama did a good job of doing, and it's going to be surprising when we say this, right? What we said that Kirby does every time. Kirby doesn't run the score from people. He tries to choke the game away. He tries to get a lead and then choke the game away. Why do you think? Okay, Quinn Ewers, Texas. How many yards did he have passing in the first half of the day, roughly? Does anybody know? It was, do you know? It was like 350. Yeah, 350, 360 in the first half. And he ended up with, I don't know, like 410, 420. So the stats are such a liar to you about how well somebody plays in a game. Bama got the lead on Georgia. They had a few things go their way. They had a short field and scored on because we dropped the ball on the 11-yard line, whatever it was, and they scored. So then Saban didn't ask Milrow to do a lot. He did not want him throwing the ball over the field. He wanted him sitting there, making a few plays with his arms, but then just being smart, letting them run the ball when they wanted to, and then scrambling for first downs. And as long as they had the lead, he was trying to shorten the game, give you less possessions, and make the clock run. And that's what they did. Once we started trying to make a little run back there at them, they threw the ball a little bit more and were successful some on us. And look, I agree. For a team for Georgia right now that did not have a difference maker on the line of scrimmage this year, you did not have a guy. I used to think back. 01 to 04, right? My roommate was David Pollock. And without question, I can remember being on the sideline. We'd be playing Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. We'd be playing at Jordan Hare against Auburn. Cadillac Williams is lining up over there. You go to LSU and you get them an SC championship game, whatever. If it was a tight game, you knew you had number 47 who was going to make a play. The last 2 years for Georgia, you could be coming against an Ohio State team. You could get Bama here and there. You could get Michigan, whoever it is. And you may think, oh, they're moving. But then you look, you're like, okay, we got number 88 there. We can look back and say, we got Sackman Jones, Jarvis Jones come off the edge for us. You've had guys for the last 2 decades for Georgia who are difference makers in your front four, who when the game is on the line, they can't be stopped. They can't be blocked. And they're going to be the man that makes a play for you. This Georgia team this year didn't have that. I think there's a few guys coming, by the way, that are some of the younger guys that may turn into that these next few years. But the difference maker for Georgia this year was not on the line of scrimmage. And it's hard to win every game in the SEC without having somebody that can dominate.
And that is.
I'm having a smile, by the way.
fair.
My wife and daughter just came in. They're sitting there taking pictures like we're going to put up on the refrigerator from sitting here talking on my phone or something. You can come over here and talk on the camera, too, if you keep talking. I can turn it around on her.
I think that's a perfect segue. You mentioned, we may have some younger guys coming in. Russ, let's talk about the transfer portal. That opened up on Monday. That's going to be very interesting. Obviously, Georgia has 8 transfers that are in the portal, I believe. Austin Blasky, Nyland Green, Jonathan Jefferson, CJ Madden, Jackson Meeks, Darius Smith, Brock Vandegrift, who we know already is going to Kentucky, and Jared Zirkle. I mean, obviously going to miss these guys, but is there, maybe talk about some additions. Are there guys that, you think that we're looking at to join this team? Some talent that we're looking to come in?
The answer to that is yes. There's definitely talented guys that Kirby's looking at bringing in. Even the Dabo Sweeneys of the world who haven't wanted to embrace the transfer portal with the way it is right now are going to have to do that. Kirby's done a really good job of that. You may think, we haven't done that much in the transfer portal. Ra Thomas and Dom Lovett were huge pieces for the team this year. I don't think you're going to see Georgia bring in 15, 20 guys, but Roddy's way ahead of me as far as knowing what's happening in the portal there. When I think the portal's hilarious from a fan situation because if a starter transfers out, that kid's a turd. We can't stand him. He's a cancer on the team. Addition by subtraction. Get out of here and take the mule that you rode in town with you. If a backup transfer is like, he wasn't really that good. He's a dang good dog. Yeah, we like him. Wish him well. Unless we think he's going to be a player for us, then it's back that we hate him again and he sucks. But, the portal is such a funny thing, man. Like, it really is. Like, all these guys who transferred here, I don't think there's any ill will with fans towards the guys who have gone in so far, because they weren't starters for your team. They weren't frontline guys. And you understand guys want to have a chance to play somewhere. And with the depth that Georgia has right now, guys are going to leave and go play other places. This is the way it is. But it's not just a Georgia problem. Every team, good Lord, you can be Texas A&M right now worried about the transfer portal. They're in a bad spot. But I expect, and Roddy could tell us his thoughts on this, I expect Georgia to bring in some really high-end guys from the transfer portal this year, some former big-time recruits, and also very productive players from the last year or two to be a part of the team. It's the way of the world now.
Roddy, when we talk about defensive players, one of the guys is Walter Nolan. Is there any chance? Is there anything you've been hearing about him?
No.
All right. Well, that was fast. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I don't think Georgia's going to go after Walter. No, they were really in on him when he was in, as a recruit. Georgia went after him very, very hard. He's one of their definitely top priorities in that recruiting class. They didn't get him. And here's the thing, Georgia does not throw big money at these kids. And people say, well, why not? They don't have it.
No.
Okay. People go, what do you mean Georgia doesn't have it? They don't have it. I can't stress this enough. Georgia is handcuffed when it comes to NIL. They just don't have the big money that these other schools do. And they also have a philosophy of not throwing crazy money after guys because you don't want to bring in a Walter Nolan, give him a $300,000 deal when you have a senior defensive lineman who's getting like $30,000 from Zaxby's. It's like, wait a minute, that kid's going to come in and he's got to pay attention to that senior. It ruins the chemistry in your locker room. And Kirby is very, very cognizant of that. He prioritizes a good locker room and leadership. What does he always talk about? Leadership. And you kind of roll your eyes because it sounds like a cliche. But if you can have a Cedric Van Pran who can go up to somebody on the offensive front and say, hey, get your crap together. When they run this twist, you are the one that's got to pick him up. You don't want Stacey Searles doing that all the time. It means more if it comes from Cedric Van Pran. Now, if you got a 5-star offensive tackle who's making 10 times what Cedric Van Pran's making, that kid's going to be like, screw you, old man. I'm the money guy. They want me more than you. If you were so good, you'd have a better deal than I do. And they compare deals. Don't think they don't. So Kirby doesn't throw a ton of money. Kirby doesn't do it, but it's the Classic City Collective. They don't do that. They work on retention. They work on guys that might be going to the NFL. They're trying to get them to everybody on the team, try to get as much to all the guys, but they're not going out and buying superstars. Walter Nolan's going to command a lot of money. An LT Overton is going to command a lot of money. And that's what the market is. Right now, Kirby is fighting like hell to keep the kid Justin Williams, a 5-star linebacker, and Jonia, his teammate out at Oak Ridge. He and Glenn Schumann went to see them today or last night. But the point is, you're trying to keep the guys you have. Now, if you want to go get KJ Bolden from Buford, who's committed to FSU doubled, tripled, quadrupled the amount that Georgia was going to give him in NIL. So, well, he's out of it. Now Auburn is coming to poach him from FSU with even more money. This kid's going to make a fortune. Georgia's not in it. Now, the kid wants to come here and play. He's told us that numerous times. People in his family do, but he's like, I could do 3 years at Auburn and make 5-6 times what I make at Georgia. Now, if I was at Georgia and I was producing and I was a senior or a junior thinking about coming back for my senior year, I could get a really nice deal because that's where you guys prioritize your money. But for an unproven kid out of high school, no matter how much they like him, Georgia's not going to do it. Now, if they had millions to give everybody, then you'd see it. But everyone's expecting Georgia to get these huge names out of the portal. The one guy I know they're going after right now who's going to come on an official visit this weekend is London Humphrey, a Vanderbilt wide receiver. Does that sound like a huge name to you? Does that sound like the,
No, I want the defense tackle from A&M. That's who I want.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Now, if Deion Walker, the zero technique nose guard from Kentucky, goes in the portal, Kirby's driving to his house. That's you'll do whatever you can to get a guy like that because you know how important it is. But those guys are rare. My point is, Georgia's active in the portal, but they didn't go crazy. I mean, the best guys they got were Dominic and Rara last year. They had Smoke Bowie come in, but that didn't work out. So you're not looking to take someone else's problem, but you just don't have the money to go toe to toe. I know people think I'm crazy. This is Georgia. Georgia's got no money compared to like Texas. Okay. What was the student population there? 70,000. Georgia's like 33. You've got all those alums there. You got oil money. You got farm money. You're not on the same plane as those guys. Now, there are people, and I know one guy who really stepped up in the past couple of days. There are people who are trying to help you out, but until you get Delta money, corporate sponsorships in there, that's why. And here's the thing. You got 2 kids out of the top 10 in the state. If you look at the top 10 recruits for Georgia in this 2024 class, Georgia's getting 2 of them, 2 out of 10. And one of them is because he moved here from California, Dylan Rayola. So, I mean, we used to go to like the Corky Kell Classic and see all these local kids, kids within the state that Georgia was going to get their Georgia's in on. Now they're going all over the country because that's where, they recruit nationwide now, but a lot of it is you got to find a kid who wants to come to Georgia and take a lower deal than he would get at UNC or Tennessee or Florida State. So
to an extent, and I don't have any inside knowledge of this, and I should probably just shut up and say Roddy's right instead of trying to think about another point because I don't know. But yeah, Georgia doesn't have like that oil money or the corporate money coming in there. But what Kirby has done, it's the same thing that like Belichick did for years when they were really good at New England. Georgia has more money than most programs out there, right? But there's 5, 10, 5 or 18, whatever it is that have more. But Georgia's got more money than Texas Tech or North Carolina State, whoever. But you're competing against Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Texas, Alabama, et cetera. But what Georgia has done, and so far, by the way, it has proven to be the right strategy, is they are spreading their money out and building a team as opposed to bringing in 2 or 3 top-end guys that you're going to spend all your war chest on. All these private money people, no matter what they say, nobody loves their school so much they're going to give them $5 or $10 million a year and not win championships. The Miami tried it a year or 2 ago, right, with the guy down there that tried to just go in and buy everybody. It didn't work. Texas A&M. It's interesting now what's going on out there with that receiver transfer this week and kind of put them on blast publicly, saying people think we're being millionaires and sliced bread. I guess talking about Jimbo. Wasn't getting us anything. So Georgia does a better job than anybody in the country, in my opinion, of spreading out the resources they have to build a team that works. And Kirby has it figured out with that. No matter, you can't have enough money to pay everybody $2 million a piece for a college team. It's just not the way it works. So, and it's going to change. We're sitting in the middle of the NIL craziness right now, thinking that we don't know what's going to happen. You're right, but I promise you, it ain't going to stay like this. They're going to figure out a way to regulate it. They've got to. It's not even fun. Now, I'm not a fan of regulation. I'm a free market person. Like, keep the communists out of my house. Like, that ain't what we're wanting to do here. All right. We want capitalism. We want it to work. But even I say in this situation, some regulation needs to be had just from a standpoint of a fair playing field. Like, I love, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a 41-year-old sappy person who gets romantic about college football, and I love just the tradition, the pageantry, the excitement that comes with it, and to see it turn into a professional thing. I don't like. Now, I'm not saying I don't like NIL. I think players should be able to get paid. I think Brock Bowers should be able to go out and advertise for ABC Roofing, and Ladd McConkey should go be able to sell all the onions he wants to. I've seen him on Billboard selling onions because they've earned that with how they performed. But they've got to cap it some way, because when it becomes a recruiting tool, and that's all it is now, by the way, some teams, their entire recruiting pitch is based around NIL, and it becomes a way to entice guys out of the portal. That wasn't what it was intended for, and it's going to be regulated. It's going to change, and it has to, or else college football will. College football is dying as we know it. The form, the structure of college football is dying. College football is not dying, but the structure of it is, and I don't want it to. It's got to change. The NCAA has been terrible for a long time. So I don't know what the answer is. I know there's some people trying to play around with like the lower division stuff now about creating some trust funds, everybody putting money in and some of that. That's probably not the answer, but there's going to be some things that are tried along those lines that end up coming up with a way that makes it fairer. Because if not, these coaches aren't going to keep doing it. Like Kirby can't keep, I don't know how he does it right now, but you've got to recruit 365 days a year, high school players, your players on your team, and portal players. You got to keep it up all the time in the way it is now. So it's not sustainable. I don't want it to stay this way, and I hope it changes, and it will. 5 years from now, college football is going to look very different than it does right now.
Absolutely.
And Roddy, you mentioned, UGA and Kirby Smart, they have an emphasis on retention rather than going out and trying to get a big piece or something like that. What are some retention pieces that you see us possibly hanging on to? Carson Beck, is he going to go to the draft? Is he going to stay? Are we going to retain him? Some offensive linemen.
You're giving away the stuff we have behind the paywall at UGAsports.com. You're trying to get me to give away the scoop, baby. Come on, man. Don't try to kill my business.
It's behind the paywall. Y'all can go figure out how to find it.
Yeah, it's 27 cents a day. Come join. It makes a great gift. It's Christmas time.
I haven't read the Dog Vent today, and I do read the Dog Vent daily. I'm not getting Roddy a shout out here, but here's my take on that. And Roddy can wink if I'm right and nod if I'm wrong. But with Carson Beck, it's all going to come down to what his draft projection is. If he's projected to be a first round, second round guy, he's going to leave. I mean, that's just the way it is, because you make more money in the NFL than you do with NIL as a quarterback. If he's projected to be a late third, fourth, fifth round guy, and he's coming out, this is a strong quarterback class for the NFL, by the way. You got Caleb Williams, Drake May. There's 4 or 5
Jaden
of them.
Daniels.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. There's 5 or 6 guys. I mean, Carson Beck this year will probably be the 6th or 7th quarterback taken as it stands, assuming something didn't go crazy in workouts. So if that's the case, a guy like him who doesn't have that many reps at a starting quarterback at Georgia yet, one more year for him. If it moves him up an entire round, which is very likely, by the way, to happen for a guy like him, he goes from a late third to a late first round guy. You're talking about the difference in $1 million and $12 million. That's a lot of money. So I would bet you Carson Beck comes back, unless the NFL guy, somebody tells him he's a late first round pick. I think he'll be back next year.
Well, right now, going into that last game, he talking to scouts. They're like late first round, second round guy. They like him more than Bo Nix. They like him more than some of these guys that are coming out. And the NFL right now is in a dire need of quarterbacks. There are guys playing that you've never heard of. So 7 guys being drafted.
For the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very quarterback heavy draft, and he could go. But you haven't read the board today. We broke the news, or put the news on the schedule on there. That's a gigantic thread. We also put a what we're hearing thread over there, and those are notorious for usually delivering bad news, but this one had some good news in it. And there's a little bit in there about Brian McClendon and a job that he's looking at. And then there's a thing about Brett Thorson and his eligibility. But we were talking about Carson Beck, and this isn't a promise. But even though Carson Beck is hearing, NFL scouts are telling me, we really like him. He's got a great arm. He's really bright. We can put him in any offense because he can pick it up. Some guys just aren't that good at it. He can make the throws. He goes through his progressions well. He's brilliant when it comes to football IQ. Got the size they want. So let's put him in there. I could see him coming back. I really do, because everybody around the program, I say everybody around, the people I've spoken to around the program are like, yeah, all signs are pointing to him coming back. So this could be a big get for Georgia. Brock Vandegrift transferred, and according to his dad, Greg, said, look, we made our decision without knowing what Carson Beck was going to be, because I thought, as everyone else did, when Brock Vandegrift hit the portal, it's like, oh, well, that means Carson's coming back.
Right.
Why the hell would he leave if Carson leaves and he's the guy and he's in the system that he's learned the last 3 years? But Brock's like, no, I'm going to Kentucky, and I look forward to him. I hope he wins every game except the one he plays Georgia. He's a great kid. I've covered him for many years. My son played against him. I know him. I know his dad really well. But they actually made that decision. They're like, look, we got to do what's good for us and what's best for us, and we're gonna go. So you could have Carson Beck actually going to the NFL, and then you're starting the game next year. That first game with Gunnar Stockton. Again, very talented quarterback, but Gunner's staying. And when I talk to people from the program, they're like, yeah, everybody right now believes that Carson Beck is coming back.
Yeah.
Does that mean he will? No. But the only people that need to know for sure are Kirby and Mike Bobo, because you don't want him to wait till after the portal closes and be like, oh yeah, guys, I'm going to the NFL. Be like, oh, bro, you're killing us here. The portal was open. All these quarterbacks put their name in there, and we could have went and gotten one. But if you haven't seen a bunch of kids talking about, and again, the quarterbacks are different, but until we hear Georgia offering quarterbacks in the portal, I got to assume that Carson Beck is coming back.
Yep. And if he was leaving, you're right. They would offer somebody they like Gunnar Stockton over there. They're high on him and think he would be a good
great.
But you got to have more experience on the roster. You're not going to go Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi, and Dylan Raiola as your 3 quarterbacks on the roster. That ain't a good formula to be great. So yeah, Carson come back one more year, give Gunnar a year or two, and then let those other cats come and do their thing. Like, you got to feel good about where the quarterback position is right now. So yeah, it's fun. I actually love watching the portal right now just for the train wreck that is happening. But I don't know. You see guys out there. I mean, to me, bring Jake Johnson home. He hit the portal at Texas A&M, a Coney County boy. His brother Max from North Carolina. I'd love to have him back over here. But Georgia will get a few nice pieces out of the portal. But yeah, we ain't going after those big boys who look for crazy money.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very fair. And to wrap us up, as usual, Russ, you showed us some phenomenal tomahawk steaks that you grilled tonight.
Yes.
But this past week, barbecue reviews, did we have any? Did we go anywhere this week?
Yeah, man, we went over to Fox Brothers in Atlanta. Drew Butler saw one of the reviews online and said something about, man, I need to take you to Fox Brothers. So I went with Drew Butler and Clint Bowling last week up there, and then boys they did pretty good for some Atlanta boys. But yeah, man, I went to Fox Brothers, and I'll tell you, man, like, we met the actual Fox Brothers, Justin and Jonathan. They were there, and man, awesome dudes, really nice guys, and the food was elite. I mean, it was high end. I mean, they're in the playoff, top 4 without a doubt.
Wow.
Without any, the committee couldn't even screw it up. It was really good. So yeah, go check it out. It was one of our better reviews, I think, on my Instagram and Facebook page. So yeah.
Yeah, Russ, what was the best thing you guys had?
Ooh, man. The brisket was awesome. I mean, I love brisket. I just love brisket. I love ribs.
I feel like that's the answer every single time. Is the brisket or the ribs?
I go eat good food with my buddies, people I enjoy being around, talk about football, talk about barbecue. That's a pretty good day for me. So,
did you have the mac and cheese? Was the mac and cheese good?
It was good. They had crumbled up sour cream and cheddar ruffles on top of it. They broke them up and spring them on the top of it.
Interesting.
It was good.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm a big Drew Butler fan. He's great. But I got excited you talk about Clint because I haven't seen Clint in forever. But he's also one of my guys. I loved covering him. Great NFL career. Always liked that guy.
Yep, they were great dudes. So I appreciate them going with me to eat barbecue, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, that about wraps us up here with Dawgs and Hawgs. So thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to tune in, every single Wednesday, 8 p.m. We were a little late on the start time tonight, but every single Wednesday, 8 p.m., same time, same place. Catch us here and go. Obviously, Roddy's got we got some great stuff over there behind the paywall, ugasports.com. He didn't want to spoil anything, so we gave some stuff away tonight. But go check out ugasports.com for more content. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next week with Dawgs and Hawgs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.